Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Open Network User Group podcast. I'm Mark Tierney. I'm ONUG CTO. Listen, today is the first in a series, an ONUG C-level series, and we're going to be talking about driving hyperautomation and the hyperautomation narrative through collaboration. All right, and before we get to the first very important guest, listen up. ONUG Fall 2022 is going to be a hybrid event. It's going to be at Center 415 on 5th Avenue in Manhattan. That's right, kids. New York City, October 19th and 20th. I can't wait. Join ONUG, the community of Global 2000 companies, enterprise architects, cloud providers, and thought leaders. And listen, we're going to be really focusing on what our working groups are doing. There's some incredible speakers. Raytheon is the host of this fall's session. I'll go ahead and point out, especially because of our speaker, we're going to be doing a live demonstration in our orchestration and automation pavilion. It's going to be a great opportunity to see what some really forward-thinking suppliers are doing in the automation space and the orchestration automation space. So go to onug.net to register for the event. Do it now. Do it today. All right. And I'm going to give you a special promo code. You can use Mark's podcast. I'm going to give you 30% discount off the registration. So do that. Do it now. Well, listen to the podcast first and then do it. All right. All right. But joining me today for today's podcast, Dale Smith. Dale is the founder and chief marketing officer at Orchestral. Dale, thanks for coming on with me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mark. It's a pleasure.
I feel like, Dale, you're a leader. You're a strong leader, strong voice on the O&A team, and you get me. Like, I know you do. You understand what makes me tick, and it's why I appreciate you being on the team. Go ahead and share with the audience a little bit about yourself, okay? Let help the audience get to know you a little better before we jump into this hyperautomation craziness.
Absolutely, and thanks again for inviting me to spend a little time here on the podcast, Mark. I don't think there's anything more natural and more organic than two guys sitting around talking about hyperautomation. Which is what we're going to do today. So
that's twisted all by itself. So we're starting off
great. Yeah. As you said, I'm Dale Smith. I am one of the founders and chief marketing officer of a company called Orchestral.ai. And probably the best way to describe what Orchestral is all about, we are an enterprise software company really focused on helping companies automate, orchestrate, and ultimately make their infrastructure autonomous, their IT infrastructure autonomous. I've been with Orchestral since the beginning, so it's been about 2 years now. Prior to that, spent some time at a company called Force 10, which was purchased by Dell and is now their Ethernet switching group. And then prior to that, did some years at Cisco and division of Bell South. So my background really has been starting in engineering. So I used to be one of those spacecraft electronics engineers, rocket scientists back in the day.
Wow.
That was fun. I'll tell you about that some other time.
Yeah, do.
And then over the years have migrated from a purely engineering focused role to business development, product management. And then for the last 10 or 15 years or so, really focused on building out the digital infrastructure primarily for startups. And that's what I really enjoy doing.
Did you grow up in the U.S.? Are you East Coast, West Coast, South Coast? Where are you from?
Refugee from the Midwest that escaped to sunny shores of California at the first opportunity.
All right.
Way back in the day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So like I said, you are a very strong voice on the ONUG Orchestration Automation Working Group. And what was it? Sometime mid last year, Gartner dropped a thing like they often do, a new term, right? Or
Yes.
at least it felt like a new term. And it was hyperautomation.
Right.
And you
2019 actually.
Is that right? Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. I felt like you were, the strongest voice on the team in suggesting that the collaboration team, the working groups, specifically the ONA Orchestration Automation Working Group, start really turning our attention towards what this means, what it should mean.
Mhm.
And then my bias, as everybody knows, is I wear the hat of the enterprise consumer, and I'm always like, yeah, okay, so what? Like, what does it really mean to the consuming customer? Where does this add value? And more than anything, Dale, like, how do we sort of separate the wheat from the chaff on this sort of thing? And I actually blogged about it in the ONUG newsletter, this most recent newsletter, because I feel like what happens is a term gets dropped
Yeah.
and suppliers sort of rush to fill a nomenclature vacuum and figure out how do I insert this into our
Right.
nomenclature, right? And then on the consumer sides, really, Dale, the same thing happens, right? The executives hear about a new term and they ask
Right.
their IT staffs, "Oh, what are we doing in this space? What are we? How are we addressing, in this case, hyper automation?" And you end up finding yourself in this rationale mode. How do I explain why I'm doing something or why I'm not doing something? um,
Hmm.
and I don't like it. Sometimes it reeks of intellectual dishonesty. It doesn't have to, but it can. And what one of the reasons why I like our or my role in particular at ONUG is really enabling the consumer, the IT consumer, to like just separate through all that and figure out what the
Sure.
right thing to do is and why, and then create rationale and narratives around it. So tell me what was important to you when you saw this come out.
Well, certainly, um, I would challenge anybody who would claim that there isn't a certain element of herd trendiness in tech. It most certainly is. Buzzwords come out and people glob onto them. And, well, they'll look around first and see if it's catching on. And if it is, then they'll grab it and super glue it to whatever it is they're offering and hope for the best. And maybe there was a little bit of that associated with hyper automation. But when you sort of dig into how Gartner has defined it and how others have kind of socialized the term, there's actually some meat that goes on those bones. And in the broad frame, hyperautomation really is about um, an attitude and an approach to addressing some of the most urgent C-level concerns around accelerated growth and greater agility and resiliency for the enterprise, being able to transform um, in a way that ensures the enterprise is relevant to the future. So it's not about a single technology. It's about an approach to automation, namely, automate anything that makes sense to automate and is within scope to automate as quickly as possible. Now, that sounds like a formula for chaos. And if it's not approached in a disciplined and organized way, then yeah, it can be a formula for chaos. But it's really the mindset and the recognition that hyperautomation is a team sport. And we've seen automation go through these various stages, and even in the ONA working group, the hyperautomation working group, now that we've evolved,
Yep.
we have a automation maturity curve. And in those first couple of stages, where you've got some scripts and some other very domain specific and siloed bits of automation, it's kind of a single player sport, single domain sport. Hyperautomation really gets us thinking about how to bring down those walls between domains and silos and looking at the broader picture of how do we orchestrate business processes across functional areas, across those siloed domains in a way that ensures value to the business at the point within the business where that value can be consumed and can be analyzed and optimized. So with our customers, now, having said all that, Orchestral is really about applying technologies, many of which fall under that umbrella that Gartner has defined for hyperautomation. I think they include about 9 distinct technologies, not limited to that, of course, but including AI, machine learning, event-driven architecture, low-code, no-code tools. All of these are within scope of what we do, but our real value proposition is ensuring that that infrastructure is capable of supporting hyperautomation initiatives, regardless of where they may start or where the scope of where they may attempt to reach. So it might be within a business unit, looking at some sort of specific application like an HR application, or it could be something in the back office to do with supply chain. So we really focus on the infrastructure, but much of hyperautomation goes beyond infrastructure at the business level, and that's where you're going to see
That's
a
what,
lot of.
yeah, and I'm glad you're pointing that out because I think you could, on the surface, unless you really dig into Gartner's white paper on the topic, you
Yeah,
might just think we've just repackaged digital transformation, and it's much deeper than that. To
yes,
me, it's perhaps the intersection of digital transformation, um, agility, and sort of addressing maybe a component of how we become more agile organization by pulling in business technologists and
mm,
business processes into
yes,
our automation discussion, so we can get real value faster. um,
yeah, and to that, Mark, it's also the idea of the culture. If your organization has a traditional culture, particularly that's within the IT operations and infrastructure teams, IT teams, that is very siloed and very domain oriented, hyperautomation provides an opportunity to reorient, to form these teams. Gartner calls them fusion teams. Others might call them centers of excellence. But it's really saying, hey guys, let's take a look at the opportunity we have, not only for cost savings and operational efficiencies, but the real jewel in the crown for hyperautomation is the opportunity to transform business models. That's where it gets really interesting. The most disruptive companies, they don't just compete on the basis of superior products and superior customer experience, but they innovate on the basis of their business models. If you're able to transform your business models in ways that your competitors are not even expecting, then you can make a real impact and leapfrog
it makes so
many
much
ways.
sense. I'm definitely an apologist of the McKinsey product model where we put products first, and so we don't.
Mhm.
It's not about the technology, right? It's how do we deliver products and services in a way that's effective, agile, you know,
Mhm.
easily consumable, frictionless,
Mhm.
in the way we develop them and in the way that we consume them. And I feel like this hyper automation topic enables all of that. Puts
Yeah.
organizations in a new mindset, and I think you're sort of making the point. An opportunity to have some cultural change in
Sure.
getting there, right, making it happen.
Yeah, it's the umbrella under which under which this change can take place, along with and can be bought within the same room, so to speak, as a lot of initiatives that are already underway. I think Gartner's studies have indicated that most large companies already have between 4 and 10 initiatives underway that probably fall within the hyperautomation initiative. So even though they may not think so or are designated as such, and I think that's what's important about what the ONUG Hyperautomation Working Group is doing. It's providing an opportunity to um, put that broad umbrella in place and help put meat on the bones in terms of helping folks understand uh, the journey, the automation journey, how that leads to this concept of AIOps, which we haven't talked about yet, but
Right.
it's probably worth noting that our movement toward a hyper automation working group um, was really about consolidating and bringing together the automation journey leading up to AIOps, which had its own working group, and then the AIOps working group bringing that together, and uh, and clearly seeing that that defines hyper automation, but also leaving it open for others who are not yet represented in the hyperautomation working group to come on in and help us paint the picture of value and connect the dots between the technology, the cultural and organizational adjustments, and on the other hand, the business value that gets delivered when you approach these things in an organized way.
Yeah, Dale, it makes a lot of sense. So one of the things that I feel like Gartner's identified like several different domains inside of hyper automation. Do you think there are any of these that are um, should be a priority or initial focus by organizations? Are you seeing anything in the marketplace that organizations are trying to turn their attention to first? Are there some common approaches that you're seeing out there?
I think it's very much dependent on the individual organization and where they are in their automation journey, what makes sense, and for them to recognize that there is a larger context for any of the automation initiatives that they might already have underway. Some companies are well along with their RPA, robotic process automation projects. Um, that's probably a good place for them to start as far as saying, okay, this is good for a business unit or a functional area initiative. What more can we do? And how do we extend what we learned there and operationalize it at a broader scale and a broader scope? So I don't think there's any one domain that represents the best place to start. Depends on
I mean,
where they
robotics
are
is
already.
kind of a specialized thing, but I can't help but think that everyone, if they're not already there, are and certainly the large enterprises are putting energy around AI ML. But I have to believe that
Sure.
that particular direction, in the tech itself, is got to be on everyone's mind. And my initial beliefs in that space were you're going to clear out the suckers, Dale, pretty fast. Those who can do it and those who can't. You know what I mean? Like, or
Yeah.
you better get ready to buy it. Like, if you can't build it, figure out how to buy it.
Yeah.
To deliver the types of services and solutions and products that you need to do. Am I off base? I've been off base before, but I don't think I am here. Like I think if you're not, if you're an enterprise, you don't have your directly understand your data, effectively and are positioned properly to implement AI ML. I think you're in trouble, and you better be looking for other ways to get it done and compete. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Okay, so beginning with your comments around RPA, we see RPA at the business unit or functional area quite a bit, although that's not something we focus on. That's not our thing. However, we have had interest in how our platform enables RPA to do things that they aren't currently designed to do today. So the first part of my answer to your question, as far as ALMI, that's the long game. And a lot of AI and ML deployments out there now are somewhat experimental and are in the early stages of finding the sweet spot for deployment and for broader adoption. One of the things we focus on is ensuring that all of the elements are in place, and that by that I mean all of the automation and orchestration, and by that I mean multi-vendor, cross-domain automation and orchestration. That platform's in place, so that when you put the AI layer on top of that, and in our case, it's an explainable artificial intelligence, and I'll go into detail later about what that means. But you put that layer on top, and you can almost think of that as the brains, with that platform of orchestration and automation being the brawn, the muscle, that actually touches the infrastructure, that actually executes the workflows, that actually responds to events occurring within that infrastructure. And connecting that up into that intelligence layer gives you stateful awareness, gives you the ability to auto remediate, gives you the ability to approach provisioning and cost optimization in a completely different way. In fact, in a way that's not possible outside of having lots and lots of people deployed to perform those functions. So for us, AI, ML ML is a necessary but not sufficient technology for the level of trustworthiness in the AI recommendations that is required for broad adoption. So I mentioned explainable AI just a minute ago. That's really about trustability. That's about high levels of predictability, high levels of explainability, leading to high levels of trustability. Can I trust what the AI is telling me? And that's one of the areas that we love to help our customers get a better grasp for. And ultimately, that's what's required for broader adoption.
What's the best? So, if and I'm going to push you here, like to the best you can, like to try to take orchestral out of the puzzle. What are the basic components of making that successful? When you talk about trust, in context to AI/ML, I mean, to me, it's all about data. It's all about biases. And things like that. So, what else am I missing? Are there other things that enterprises need to do to instill that kind of trust in this tech? Is that a fair question?
Context.
Maybe it's not a fair question. I don't.
No, it's a good question. It's about context. So it's important that the data be processed within a context. And so you have a number of technologies that allow you to achieve that. It's also important that you look at technologies like digital twin, which enables you to create essentially a completely digital representation of your infrastructure, including your critical applications, that allows you to do some what if scenarios, allows you to understand the fragility of your infrastructure, allows you to understand such concepts as blast radius. So if something does break, what's the impact? What services do I lose? What customer connections are at risk when you do something like that? So it allows you to be able to model the impact on customer experience or employee experience, as the case may be, when critical events happen within that infrastructure. So context is super important. And also, it's not about any one technology that gets you there. One of the things I like about Gartner's approach and the whole idea of hyperautomation is it recognizes that for automation to achieve its true potential in the enterprise, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a team sport, and it entails many technologies, and in some cases, a unique combination of those technologies to achieve differentiation and to achieve the broader adoption that we are all hoping for is on the vendor side of things. And
one of the things,
I hope that answers your question, but
yeah, it does. It does.
I can blather on some more.
Building on that comment, Gartner, one of the things that they put out in their initial report is what their expectations are, particularly in 2022 around spending, right? And they report 80% of enterprises expect to increase their spending in digital business initiatives, sort of layered on top of 65% increasing their digital business pace, right?
Yes.
Like, hey, let's pick it up, kids. Right? And shortening timelines, right? So it's all in this 70 to 80% range of expectations that organizations are going to be doing this. It's clear that this topic is a critical, competitive issue. Again, you better get on board the train of digital transformation, including hyperautomation, type technologies, or you may get left behind.
Yeah, and I think you can actually think of hyperautomation, Mark, as a means to an end, as a means for achieving your aspirations around digital transformation. That's kind of the way I see it. Another thing that Gartner mentioned, which I think is noteworthy, and that is that hyperautomation is no longer an option, but a necessity as an orientation toward addressing the challenges of digital transformation and, continuing to be relevant to the future. As organizations evolve, it's super important.
I think it makes sense too. Also, and I've drawn these comparisons before on this show and in other forums where consumer sort of the consumerism of enterprise technologies, right, is driving perceptions like what you mentioned, experience. I'll jump right on that, right? Whether it's an employee experience or a customer experience, right? How we consume solutions provided for us by big enterprises versus a consumer-based process. People want it. They want it fast, and they want it easy, and they want it new too. They want it flashy in some respects. I'm not suggesting that's right or wrong. I don't know that it's right or wrong. All I know is that culturally, it's a real thing.
It is, and I think that's exciting. Just me personally, the fact that you have the democratization of technology, you have what are called business technologists who come together with folks having very specific domain expertise, and this is where you see the potential of human creativity when folks get together and collaborate around specific problems. You start with a specific problem, But then as they go along, they get a view of the broader scope of what this technology can do for them. I think Gartner refers to them as citizen developers and citizen data analysts and business technologists. And when we talk to our customers, we're beginning to see a little bit of that. It's not just IT in the room. There are other folks that are coming together in groups.
Yeah. Yep.
that are listening to, okay, what can we do? How do we do it? How do we get started? What's the business impact? What's the time to value? All of these issues, and to me, it's an exciting time.
I'll tell you, one of the things I didn't see, at least at the level that I thought I would in Gartner's assessment and reporting of this, is I thought it was a little weak in security, in talking about how we adopt and incorporate um, a more secure mindset into all of this. Because honestly, what's the point, right? If we can't
Mm.
also and look at me, I'm berating Gartner, so look out, right there. But no, and I don't mean to overblow it or overstate it, but we certainly spent a lot of time at ONUG talking about connect, secure, observe, and automate, right? And secure is right in there. Like, it's got to be part of the discussion, right? Every step of the way. And
Well,
so yeah, people have got to keep their eye on that ball at all times. That's my belief, anyway.
yeah, certainly the security guys have got to be, have got to have an invitation to the party, or else the lights go out early, and that's no
Well, and
fun.
not to pick on you for saying that. I mean, I love to pick on you, but not intentionally in this case. But we're all security guys. Like, that's the thing. Like, we
Yeah,
all need to be, have that mindset today.
yeah,
And it's talking about democratization of security would be, would do us all well, right? When we're having
yeah.
this kind of discussion. Okay, I've talked your ear off. I'm unfortunately going to have to wrap this up. I learned a lot. You've told us a little bit about Orchestra. Why don't we give you another minute or two just to blow your horn about what's going on over there at Orchestral and how people can learn more.
At Orchestral, we're having a good time helping our clients automate their infrastructure, orchestrate it, and get it ready to be autonomous. And so our catchphrase is, pioneering autonomous infrastructure. And I'm just waiting for Gardner to give us a ring so they can learn more about what that means. I'm watching my phone over there. Expect to
It's
start
right around the
ringing
corner, man.
right around the corner. And we primarily work with companies that have large, complex distributed infrastructure, and we work with them across a broad range of use cases. You mentioned security, so security orchestration, VM lifecycle management, identity management. There are a number of use cases, and it's exciting to see that this whole movement toward automation and the broader promise of AI-driven or explainable AI-driven orchestration is beginning to be something in the front and the top of folks' minds. And it's a good time to be in this space. Gardner's studies are, I think, well timed, and from what we're seeing, their enthusiasm is not misplaced, I don't think.
Well,
So,
I'll just
yeah.
sort of wrap it up by saying, thanks to you, and thanks to you, this became really a hot topic on ONUG's orchestration and automation working group. You've provided a
Well,
lot of leadership in the working group, and
well,
whether
thank
it's
you.
you or the other suppliers that are part of that team, I continue always, like, I'm gratified and always somewhat a bit astonished at how deferential you and professional, all of y'all are with each other, y'all being a Texas word, when we're working together to help enterprise consumers, do the right thing. And, you're part of that message. You're part of that working group that creates, roadmaps and guidelines and all of that. So, thanks to you and thanks to Orchestral. Thanks for being the first, Dale, to, jump on this series that, takes a brave person, let's be honest, just to come on a podcast with me anyway.
Thanks, Mark. I just like to put a shout out to folks to get involved with ONUG. To your point, it's a great experience to have this interchange and this sharing from the vendor side of what we are sharing as our technology solutions, and from the enterprise or consumer side, as you say, bringing new use cases for us to focus on, think about, and come up with clever approaches to solving. So, guys, come on. ONUG's a great place to be. Come on in.
That's perfect. Thanks for that, Dale. So I'll wrap up. So, one of the best ways to get involved is join the collaborative. You can find out about that at onug.net. And don't forget, ONUG Fall 2022, October 19th and 20th. It's at Center 415. It's 5th Avenue, Manhattan, New York City. It's going to be a great time. And like I mentioned in the beginning, live demonstrations, orchestration automation, the team that Dale provides a lot of leadership on, we'll be in a live pavilion doing a live demos with a whole bunch of different providers. Also, our network cloud team will be in a pavilion for the first time on the showroom floor. A lot of cool stuff going on there in the network cloud environment. And why come see it? Because you'll know it works because you saw it in ONUG. That's what we say. So thanks again, Dale, for joining us, and thanks to everyone in the ONUG community for joining for this podcast, and we will see you on the next ONUG podcast.
It was fun.
Thanks, everybody.
Do it again sometime. Thanks, Mark. Cheers.